In the Alibre forums, there was an interesting question asked about making custom shapes for sheet metal lofted flanges. Now we have a really awesome sheet metal lofting tool, but if it doesn't produce the exact shape that you want, let's talk about ways that you can create your own lofted sheet metal here in Alibre. Now normally in the sheet metal environment, I can go into Lofted and I can see that I can loft, say, a square rectangle to a square rectangle, a circle to a square rectangle, or a circle to a circle. And if I choose one and say OK, I can see that I have a lofted flange. Now, what if I don't have the capabilities of making it go from this radius to this radius smoothly? What if I need to use a break bender? Or what if I need to have something that doesn't have as rounded of corners and I need a special profile? All of these things and more are reasons why we may want to make our own lofted flanges in Alibre, but usually, almost all the time, the tool is exactly what we need. But in those rare cases when we need to make our own, let's take a look at how to do it. Now, one thing that might be relevant is something like this, right? Where our circular profile is not in the center of the flange at all. We have these straight sections, so it's almost more of like an octagon. If we have to make an interesting or strange flange like this, let's open up a new part and see exactly how to do it. Now the first thing to notice is I'm not in the sheet metal environment. I am in a regular part modeling environment. I'll show my planes with Control-Shift-P and start a sketch on my top ZX plane. And from here, I'm going to insert a regular polygon. I like multiples of 8, so I'll go with 32, and I'll tell you why I'm inserting a polygon with 32 sides. We'll apply this. There's a lot of elements here, so it may take a second to compute all those elements. And once that's done, I'll add a horizontal right here. So the reason why I like multiples of 8 is because now I have a horizontal here and a vertical here. So if I were to model in fourths, I certainly can do that. Now, you could probably do that with multiples of 4 as well, but I tend to go with 8 a lot. So we'll go 32 here, and then give this a size. We'll do something like 6, and we'll deactivate. I'll make a plane, and we'll offset the plane about 10 inches, and then activate a sketch on that offset plane. I'll project the sketch that I just made. We'll do so as a sketch figure with association maintained. Now I can start building out my sketch. I'm going to try to add some lines that have no automatic constraints on them. I'm going to add 4 lines here and 4 lines. I got an automatic there. 4 lines there, another automatic. So I'm going to delete these automatic constraints. And maybe another one there. Okay. Now I'm going to use the parallel, and it looks like I actually need to convert all of these to reference. I meant to make this reference here. Okay, but they won't walk around on me, so that's good. I'm going to grab parallel, and we're going to choose parallel for this line, and I can see that there's new parallel constraints on both. So go to the next line that doesn't have a parallel and add it to the next line that doesn't have a parallel, and so on. So adding these parallels is quite important, because if the lines aren't parallel, we won't be able to convert to sheet metal. Right? So we're making a model in the regular modeling part workspace, and then we're going to convert it into a sheet metal part. But for that to work, we need a certain kind of developable geometry. And that really means, okay, good. I'll get rid of this for now. And that really means that we just need to have all these lines be parallel with their counterpart. From here, I'll go ahead and make these equal. Let's make something that looks like an octagon at the end. I grabbed parallel. I meant to grab equal, so make these lines all equal. And finally, equal. Okay. now we don't have to make these equal, but if I want it to be symmetric, that's pretty handy. I'll make these quite small at 0.03125 probably. And I'll make this horizontal, grab the origin, make that horizontal right there. Now, looks like I need to make this equal or vertical as well, so we add a vertical there. And maybe I'll add some construction lines just so I can set the lengths of the construction lines to be equal. And that way we can have a good octagon kind of shape. Maybe something like that. We'll give this a dimension. Let's go with something much larger. How about 6? And we can shrink that up, right? So we've got this sort of partial octagon looking thing. Give this a final dimension, maybe 3 on the dot is what we want. So we have this octagon profile, but every step in that profile has a parallel to one corresponding element in the beginning sketch, right? Now, I'm going to make this a reference figure and this a reference figure, and we're going to pattern this. If I pattern this without reference figures, then you'll notice I have one vertical line that goes all the way across the axis. But here I've got a vertical line that stops at the axis, and so if I were to pattern this, it would create 2 lines to correspond to one right there. Not best practice for lofting and probably will mess up our sheet metal part. So we'll just grab these elements right here. We'll create a circular pattern with our origin at the center. And I have successfully put a sketch point somewhere and established a new origin to revolve around, and it's all worked. But if you want it to be symmetric, your origin's a great bet. And now I can add a single element here. And there. And you'll notice that our sketch pattern isn't fully constrained. So as of right now, the way that is probably best to deal with this is to say, okay, I've established my fully defined sketch right there. And if I need to make any dimensional changes, it's pretty easy to just delete the stuff that's red, make your changes, and then repattern it. Probably saves you a lot more time than trying to keep everything fully constrained. And you might have a change that comes up that breaks all those constraints anyways. So we'll deactivate the sketch here and create a loft. We'll loft, of course, from this sketch to this sketch. And just like that, we have something that's starting to look actually a little bit like a sheet metal flange. And then finally, I'll sketch on this face. We want to put a rip somewhere so that our sheet metal has a place to start and a place to end. I'll put a rectangle with the corner right on the origin. We'll say, 10/1000ths of an inch. And we'll make sure that this is just super long so that it goes all the way through our part. And we're going to say extrude cut through all. Well, that is all the setup that we need to get our sheet metal part. So I'll hide my planes and sketches and get an even prettier picture. And now I'll save. From here, after saving, we can send to convert to sheet metal. And this is where really having those parallels is very important. So we choose a tab, and then I start clicking on bends. And if my bends are lofted from one element that's parallel, one edge up here that's parallel to the edge down here, we can click on a bend and see it fill in with orange, meaning that it is a developable surface and can be converted to sheet metal. If we didn't take the time to make sure things were parallel, then we would not be building out a sheet metal part right now. I'll go ahead and finish clicking on these bends. And we've noticed that we've started right where we've ended, right where our rip is and where our base flange starts. So we're going to say OK to accept that. And now we have a sheet metal loft that is very, very unique and should be able to meet our dimensional needs. Let's go with flat pattern, and we can see that it flattens out quite nicely. So this again came from a forum question. I thought it was deliciously interesting. This is very symmetric. I've obviously showed an asymmetric one, so there's a lot of different options and things that we can do. There's an asymmetric version, right? We just alter our sketches a little bit and can produce an interesting asymmetric one. We can make almost any shape that you want, as long as it's kind of derived from that regular polygon originally. So hopefully this is helpful. If it was, please subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.